Hi, in this episode we'll implement ages displaying to the user. As we don't know yet for sure how we want to display it or what the age consists of, we'll mock it up on ages pages. By the end of this episode, we'll have quite a good idea what Angular application wants from backend. So let's get started. We run grunt server, and also here I opened ages controller on the top and ages HTML on the bottom. So let's start from the view. So basically we will have filters on the top right here, and then after them we want to display the list of ages. So let's start from the list. So we will have unordered list and then list item. So we will use ng repeat to iterate through ages. So in ages. So we expect that controller here will have ages. And first we want to display age name. Also, each age will belong to category. So let's add here a span with class label default. And inside of the span we will have age category name displayed. And we close the span. Okay, so something like this. Of course, nothing happens right now because we do not have this ages variable. So let's go back to controller here. So now we need ages. So on our scope, we define ages, and that's going to be just an array of objects. So the age will have, as we can see here, name. So for example, attractive, and category, which is the object by itself with the name background. Let's close it up like this. So now if we save it, we see here ages with background attractive. What else does age have? Well, it has requirements. So player can take age if requirements for this age are not met. So let's go back here, and after age name, we'll have another span with class text muted. And here we want to display requirements. But there are a lot of requirements. There will be several of them. So there's going to be an array of objects. So we need some kind of a function that will take this array and extract the information that we want to display to the user and concatenate it in one string. So we will name this function display requirements, and it will take requirements from ages. And let's close span. So now we need to have this display requirements function. So as we add new logic to controller, and we already know how to test controllers, let's test drive this method. So let's open spec controller main, which by the way I forgot to rename. So let's rename it to, that was the navigation actually, navigation controller. So let's save it and let's rename it to navigation. Okay, so let's create another spec for ages controller. So and basically it will have almost the same setup. So I'm gonna copy it and paste into here. So we have not navigation, but ages controller. And here we do the same stuff. We do not need here the location, so I'm going to delete it. So we fetch module and we inject dependencies, controller, root scope, no location here. And we instantiate controller. Okay, so let's introduce another describe block. And inside of the describe, we going to describe display requirements function, and here let's create an example. So first our example is going to be it concatenates name and value of the requirement. So for that, first of course we need to talk about how our requirement represented. So let's create here var rex, short for requirements, and in this example let's define requirements. Requirements will be an array of objects. So object will have name. So for example, requirement is agility, name, and value. For example, D6. So now when we have this kind of requirements, we expect that when we call display requirements on scope with these requirements, we expect it to equal agility d6. Okay, so I'm gonna just make it bigger so you can see it better. So the first example is it concatenates name and value of the requirement. So requirement consists of name and value, and we will have another attribute there later, but now name and value, and we want to concatenate it to display to the user. So in this case, we concatenate name with value, and it should be agility d6. Okay, so let's run karma start, and let's save the file. And you can see, of course, that we fail because we do not have these display requirements. So let's define it right here on the scope. So we do scope display requirements. There's a function that takes requirements. Save it. Now we have another error, unexpected token. Okay, again. So now we have an error because our function doesn't do anything. So let's implement something. So basically we will have result string, which is an empty string, and we're going to return it. Save it. And that happens because here, that's the evil of copy and pasting. I forgot to change navigation to edges. So edges controller. So now we have a better error message. So we expected empty string to equal agility d6. So let's make it work. So basically what we do is we make in the array for I equals 0 and I less than rex length and I++, and then we just concatenate result with rex I name plus space and plus rex I value, and close it. And we green. Excellent. So now we have this first example. Let's add another one. Another example is about name could be null. We always have value, but name could be null. So let's copy this and create another example. And we call it ignores name if it is null. So here I'm gonna remove name to null. And we will have it for ranks, so like this, novice. And after that, we actually expect it to be just novice, nothing else. So if we save it, it will fail because we have null novice instead of novice. So that's just the basic TDD development, right? So we're going back to our implementation, and we add here that only if rex I name, then we want the result to add, to concatenate rex I name and plus space. So in here, I will just remove all of this, save it, and we're back to green. Great. So, and while we're here, let's make the last example. So this example is about requirements should be delimited by comma. So if we have several requirements, for example, this one and this one, I'm going just to copy it and paste it right here. So we have two requirements, and then we expect it to be delimited by comma and then agility d6. So if we run it, we'll fail because we have just novice agilities merged together, but we want novice comma agility. So let's go back, and here we'll implement it with if result not equals to empty string, we add result comma space. Save it, and we're back to green. So now we test driven these display requirements. And we have all these tests, and we can be sure that requirements will be displayed correctly. So let's have a look at the browser. So for now, we have attractive undefined. So we need to go back here to our edges, and let's add here some requirements. Now we know how they look like. So we have an array, and inside of this array, we have name, for example, null, and value novice. And the second one will be name vigor and value d6. Let's save it. And now you can see that it works as we expect. Great. Now I also want to display full description of the age, but only when user clicks on it. So we have here, for example, attractive, and when I click on it here, I want to be able to see the description of this age. And only one description can be active. So if I have several of them, when I click on one of them, it will display the description and hide other descriptions. So only one active age will display the description. So let's go back to our HTML, and we could place it right here in the list item, but I will do it differently for the sake of the example, so I could demonstrate you how to use ngRepeatStart and ngRepeatEnd directives. So let's add another list item here. And inside of this list item, we will have age description to be displayed. So let's go back to our controller and add this description and say blah. Of course, nothing is rendered here because we iterate through ages only in this element inside of this list item, but this is another list item. Sometimes we need to prolong this iteration to several tags, like in this case. So for that, we can use ngRepeatStart and here ngRepeatEnd. And this way, if we reload the page, we see blah. But I don't want them to be visible until one of them is selected. So I'm going back again here and I'll add another one, the same age. And you can see that all descriptions are here, blah, blah. I don't want them to be visible until one of them is selected. So this phrase I just told is very easily transformed to Angular directive. Let's have a look. Right here on the second list item element, I'll just do ngShow, so I want to show it only if is selected edge. Let's save it. And now, as you can see, no description is showing because we do not have is selected. So let's add it on the scope right here. We have scope is selected equals function. It takes age and it just return if age is equal to selected age. And we need to define this var selected age. And by default it's going to be a null. Okay, so now we need the means to select the age. And we do it by adding here on this list item, we'll add another directive ngClick. And we tell to select age with current age. Okay, now here let's define on scope select edge function, which also takes age. And as you probably guessed, we just assign select age to this age. So now if I click on it, you can see the description blah. If I click on another one, blah. Okay, that's cool. Another thing that I want to add is when I click on it again, I want to hide it. So some kind of a toggle behavior. And of course, we should write test for this because that's the logic, but I'll skip it and you can do it by yourself. So what we do here is to make the toggle functionality, we check that selected age equals age, and in this case, it's null, but otherwise it's age. If I save it, I have toggling effect here and the basic thing that I initially wanted. Excellent. So now let's extract these ages from the controller. So basically, we'll use resource to get these ages from the server. So we will have something like this. We'll have scope edges equals servers that we will call edges, and then we query this service like this. Okay, let's remove this ages from here altogether. I save it, and of course nothing there. So we need, first of all, we need to inject these edges here. And now we need to create this edges service. So let's go to scripts, and in here we will create services folder, and inside of it ages.js. and we need to create this directory. And as usual, we will have use strict Angular module, the name of our application, service. And we're going to use service, not factory, because we need to create this method on the object, which is easier to do on service. So we call it ages. It's going to be a function. And inside of it, we create this query equals function. And this function will return ages array. So I'm going to just paste this ages array like this. Okay, so let's save it. Now we need to add this to our index.html file. So here at the bottom, let's add our service. So we have services, edges. Save it. And now you can see that we have a whole bunch of services. And our controller just uses this separate object to query it for the ages data. And the ages data are in this separate object, which we will replace later with the resource service, which actually will fetch edges from server. Okay, so now you can see here that we can totally use it. We have the descriptions, and that's pretty cool. So let's have a commit. Edges pages. Okay, in this episode we created data structure for edges and figure out how we want them to be presented to the user. In the next episode we'll add filters so user can find edges he wants pretty quickly. So thank you very much for your time and see you in the next episode.